Hello, everybody. It is currently Sunday, February 16th, 2025, 2 days after Valentine's Day, and I bet you're regretting buying that dinner now, dude. Couldn't afford alcohol last night because you paid too much money on that dinner. That's not what I'm here to talk about. I already went on that dumb wannabe Tim Dillon rant. I mean, just awful. Looking back on it, dude. I don't know if I've talked about this before, but you know the movie Inside Out? How the little girl has like all those emotions in her head and stuff, and they all have their own personality. I think I only have one. I think it's like a 13-year-old kid named like Dequarion or something like that, and he tells me what's gay and what's not. And he swung and missed right there. He missed his only job. He must have been like texting someone or something. Must have been like taking a video for the gram, being like, I'm in this motherfucker's brain. I control this motherfucker. I tell him what to do. He was sleeping on that one. That one, swing and a miss there, but this isn't going to be a swing and a miss because I consulted with the Quarion. He said, this is a good idea. I'm going to have to beat some toddler ass. That's how I'm going to start this story off. It's not even it's barely an anecdote. Maybe not even an anecdote. But my brother's kids, so I'm at college right now and I'm like 8 hours away from home or whatever. And allegedly my brother's kids went over to my mom's house. And when they were there, my mom texted me. She was like, they asked where you were today. And I was like, Mom, I know for a fact that's not true. I know for a fact they don't know what my name. It's like every time I have to introduce myself to them, it's like, have you ever seen those videos on like Instagram or TikTok or whatever? And it's like abused dog meets friendly person. That's what it's like every time I meet them. Like every time I meet them, I'm like, hey, what's up, guys? And they're like cowering behind the couch and shit. I'm like, dude, what the fuck? And so I was like, Mom, I know for a fact that's not true. And she was like, yeah, you're right. But they did ask where that other guy was. They were like, where's that other guy at? And I was like, dude, I didn't text this to my mom, obviously. I'm gonna have to beat their asses. That's so disrespectful. Dude, I see them all the time. I play with them and they don't remember my fucking name. Every time. Every time they like ask their parents, they're like, who's that guy? I'm gonna have to beat some toddler ass. Ben Frank definitely beat some toddler ass, dude. Back in the 1700s, dude, they were like giving kids lobotomies for like not sitting still in class in like the 1950s. Ben Frank was definitely beating some child ass. That's what his first public office should have been, but no. His first public office was he was appointed as the postmaster of Philadelphia in 1737, and he held office until 1753. So he was like the FDR of mail. Everyone was getting their mail on time. It took like 3 months to move the mail down the street, but they were getting it on time. So Ben Franklin was really I guess he was appointed though, so he wasn't like elected. And even then, back then elections were like, are you a rich white guy? I'm talking rich. You know what I mean? How many of them do you have? And you know what I mean when I'm talking about them. How many do you have? Be honest. You have 3. All right, get in that booth, dude. Get Ben Franklin back as postmaster. But he was appointed to that position due to his being a publisher / printer. And dude, it's just so funny back in the day, like the scientists and like the way they figured shit out. They were like, all right, these two things are similar. Like they thought whales were fish for the longest time. They didn't know shit about whales. They were like, dude, these guys are fish. They live in the ocean. They were working with that 4-year-old logic. They were like, dude, dolphins live in water, dumbass. Obviously, it's a fish. And that's how they were with Ben Frank. They saw that he was publishing shit about the Germans, and they were like, all right, get this guy in the office. He knows what's up. He knows those Germans will never be real white people. Or were the Germans the Mexicans of the time? They might have been. The Germans might have been the Mexicans of the time. They were coming over en masse, and they were just working on farms. They were putting in that work. And they're pretty similar to Mexicans if you think about it. They love beer. They love sausage. I guess the only difference between, I'm talking like old Germany, not New Germany. New Germany, Mexicans would hate that, dude. They do not play that shit that Germany's on right now. That all-inclusive shit, hell no. They do not play that shit. So they're not like but Germans back in the day, I mean, I'm seeing some similarities. I don't know. Ben Frank was the fucking Ben Shapiro, or what's that guy's name? Like Charlie Kirk, or one of like those weird like online conservative guys. One of those Reddit conservatives. That's what Ben Frank was back in the day. He would have been that if he was born today. He would have been a guy that's like, he would have at least 10,000 karma on Reddit. He'd be on it. He'd be modding all the subs. That's what Ben Frank would be doing if he was alive today. But back in the day, he was a big paper guy. He was all about that paper. And that's why they put him on the paper. They said, "Hey, let's get this motherfucker on the paper," and they got him on that paper. God damn it! I said whatever. When Franklin was appointed as deputy postmaster of British North America, he connected the postal routes and offices in Canada and America, and that's why he left the position as the Philadelphia postmaster general. And yeah, that's why he left it, because he became the deputy, which I guess is like assistant or like second, but it seems like he did all the work. It's like one of those things. It might have been a Dick Cheney situation. He might have been the Dick Cheney of mail. That's what it's looking like here. And he wasn't like, it's not like before that the routes weren't connected, because at the time, like, the Canada area was controlled by France, and then once England got control, he was the one that connected it to North America and shit. He figured that out. He was like, all right, guys. They were like, what are we going to do? How are we going to do it? How are we going to connect the mail? Ben Franklin came out and he was like, donkeys. We're just going to strap this shit to donkeys. I got an idea. I've been watching the Mexicans and I've been learning from them. All right? I said all that shit. I take it back now. All right? The Mexicans, they figured it out with the donkeys. All right? We're just going to beat these motherfuckers' asses and make them move the mail. So that's what Ben Franklin did. And due to his position as the deputy postmaster of British North America, he lived in England from 1757 to 1762, and then again from 1764 until 1777. This dude hated his wife. We talked about it a little bit in the last episode, where, like, some people think he blamed his wife for not inoculating his kid against smallpox, and that's why his kid died. But I think he just hated his wife in general. Like, we're going to talk about this. I might talk about it at the end, but this dude, I really think he just hated his wife. He's like, yo, get me out of here. And he was getting active over in England, allegedly. We're not going to talk about that too much. I don't want to put smut on the man's name. He was a sick-ass motherfucker, though. He was doing... He did literally everything. That's why this had to be broken down into two parts. I didn't realize this. He was the only one that did anything. He was the first ever guy to figure out mail. He might have invented writing. He did invent an alphabet. I didn't write that down because it was kind of like a bullshit alphabet. It's like one of like those phonetic alphabets where it's like every letter has a different pronunciation. He invented that, but that's not important. Would have been sick if that caught on, though. And so he was the deputy postmaster of British North America, but he was dismissed from this position due to his sympathies towards American revolutionaries, and that's why he left England in 1774. And so he was dismissed from this position, and on July 26, 1775, Franklin was appointed as the first postmaster general by the Second Continental Congress. So I don't know how exactly that works. I guess maybe like all the colonies got together and they made their own like little Congress thing. Like they were still under British rule, but they decided to make their own Congress. I don't know exactly how that works, but he was the first postmaster general. And the system established under Franklin, the United States Postal Office, continues to this day. And so every time you see a fat black woman with a big ass, or like a middle-aged white dude who's like 5'5" with just bowling balls of calves, just remember, they're carrying on the memory of Ben Franklin. Every time they deliver a piece of mail, every time they put those khaki shorts on in the morning, those khaki shorts that fucking hug their thighs, dude. They love the tightest fucking khaki shorts. Like we talked about with I don't know if I talked about this in the Rhodesian bush war episode, but they used to wear like khaki shorts when they would go out and fight and shit because they didn't like pants, I guess. That's all Ben Franklin. He invented the khaki shorts. That's another thing he saw. But while he was doing all that, he was doing everything at once. He was also sent to England to protest the Penn family's political control over Pennsylvania in 1757. And he would keep on doing this. He kept like protesting and protesting. And it's like when they were talking about how like he wrote letters to people, but he didn't really write letters to people. He published them. I think it's the same thing where it's like he protested it, but he didn't really. I think it was just him being like, yo, fuck you. It wasn't like he was like walking down the street with signs. He was like going up to them and being like, fuck you, dude. You don't control us. I know Pennsylvania is named after your family, and I know technically you do have control over whatever we do, but fuck you. In Pennsylvania, I'm also going to try to explain this. This is going to be a difficult one to get through. But Pennsylvania at the time was what was called a proprietary colony, which this is my understanding of it. It's given control over the colony is given to a company or a family. In this case, it was the Penn family, and that's why it's called Pennsylvania. But it was given control to a family, but ultimately, like, still, like, the royal family had control over it. I think it's like a thing where, like, the royal family was so inbred that they were like, dude, we cannot have this fucking crazy dude with a brain the size of a walnut controlling this whole colony. Let's just give it to these people. I think it was that type of thing. So technically, the royal family had control, but it was mostly the Penn family that was making all the decisions about the Pennsylvania colony. And he was sent to do this because the Penn family was overturning legislation from the colony's elected assembly. So they were like, oh, you guys have freedom? I bet you don't. Oh, you guys want to do what you want? Actually, you're gonna do what I want. You're gonna shut the fuck up. You're gonna listen to me. How about that? So that's what Ben Franklin was sent to England for, and he continued on this mission for 5 years. So from 1757 until 1762, he protested against the Penn family, but ultimately that failed. And that was, I mean, yeah, they're not gonna fuck it. They controlled Pennsylvania, like a family of people controlled. They're not listening to him. The same way when people are like, the government needs to make Amazon pay. It's Amazon's not gonna listen to the fucking government, dude. They'll just like go to China or like Indonesia or some shit. They're not gonna listen to the government. Bezos has like space missiles and shit. He's not listening, and that I'm sure the Penn family had the 1775 equivalent of space missiles, which was just an army of dudes who knew not to walk in a straight line straight at the enemy. That was the 1757 equivalent of space missiles. So after failing to protest, Franklin returned to Pennsylvania and led the Anti-Proprietary Party, which I guess was just a party committed to being like, fuck these guys. I don't know. He was like the socialist. Like I said, dude, he was the Redditor of the day. He was like the king of Reddit back in the day of fucking Pennsylvania. Or I guess just America. Maybe the world as a whole. This led him, him leading this protest party led him to being elected as the Speaker of the Pennsylvania House in 1764. And he quickly lost his position 5 months later for proposing a change of power from the Penn family to the royal government. I think even the people of Pennsylvania knew. They were like, dude, no, do not let King George tell us what to do. Dude, King George's parents are fucking brother and sister, dude. Do not let him tell us what to do. It was basically like letting a guy with like Down syndrome rule your fucking state, which could have ruled. I don't know. Maybe he would have just sent over a bunch of beer and like some jacked dudes and some chicks with big tits and like let them went hog wild. But they were having none of that, the people of Pennsylvania, and so they kicked him out of office for that. And after that, again, he was sent to England to protest the Penn family's political control. And he was also going to England to fulfill his role as Deputy Postmaster of British North America. And I'm thinking, like, they didn't even, they didn't have money to send someone else over. So they're like, Ben, you're going over? Yo, someone get Ben Frank. He's going over to England to be Deputy Postmaster. All right. Tell him to tell these guys to stop fucking around over here. I think it was that type of thing. Like, they didn't have enough money to send another dude over, so they were just like, all right, he's fucking heading over anyway. Let's make him do this shit too. Let's tell him he'll be our best friend. It's like back in like high school when you would like make the not retarded kids, but like retarded in the classical sense. You would make the retarded kids like do shit, like throw a chair across the classroom or whatever. I think they were doing that with Ben Frank. They're like, dude, who gives a fuck let's make this nerd do it for us. Tell him we'll be his best friend if he throws a chair at the whatever William Penn. I think that's what they were doing. So again, he was sent to protest the Penn family control. And while in London, Franklin attempted to prevent the 1765 Stamp Act from passing. And the Stamp Act was one of those things where it was like, from my understanding of it, you could only buy paper that was like made specifically by the Penn family or the British royal government or something like that. So you could only get paper from this source, and it was like taxed to hell. It was one of those things that was like whatever, what was it called? The tea tax or whatever that like caused the Boston Tea Party and therefore the revolution. It was one of those things where it's like no taxation without representation or whatever. This is I'm trying to explain like 1700s politics. I'm completely lost. It was like fucking, and then everyone got pissed and they were like, "Fuck this dude." But I'm guessing it was one of those things where they were like, "These guys don't give a fuck about us. We're basically their slaves," and they were having none of that. So he didn't prevent it from getting passed, obviously. Upon its passing, though, Franklin recommended a friend to be the stamp distributor for the colony of Pennsylvania, and people took this as like a sign that he was supporting it the whole way through and was like, I guess, faking his support for it not getting passed. I don't know. It was something like that. And so they heard about him recommending his friend to be this guy, and they got super pissed and they threatened to destroy his home. And I was thinking about that. So he's in England, and this is happening in Pennsylvania. It took him like 3 months to figure this out. They were like, "Dude, we're gonna destroy this dude's home." This whole process took like 6 months, like of just back and forth for them to figure out what was going on. And Franklin heard about this 3 months after it happened, and he was like, "Holy fuck!" His house would have already been destroyed at this point. You know what I mean? It's 3 months. These guys, this is Pennsylvania. We're talking like Amish people. They definitely would have had his house disassembled and built into a barn within a week. They would have taken it apart like Legos. They would have been using their teeth to pull the nails out of the wall and shit. So, but he heard about this and he was like, "Fuck, dude, god damn it." And he heard about this and he went in front of the House of Commons. And I'm assuming these are like people that decide what goes on in the colonies. And he testified in front of them. And he eventually got the 1765 Stamp Act repealed. And he wasn't the only guy that did this. I'm sure a bunch of other colonies sent representatives and shit. But Ben Franklin was like, he was like the guy. You know what I mean? He was fucking like Rob Kardashian or whatever in the OJ trial. He came up with the genius idea: if the gloves don't fit, you must acquit. And he got the 1765 Stamp Act repealed. Sorry, I had to take a drink of water real quick. But this getting the Stamp Act repealed, it made him like super popular in the colonies. He basically became the Michael Jackson of the colonies. And I'm not going to get into that because I don't want to put smut on the man's name again, but he might have been more similar to Michael Jackson than we think. But this made him massively popular in the colonies, and he was appointed as an agent to the crown, which is like the ambassador of the colony to the royal government. He was like the go-between, between the colonies and the royal government for Georgia, New Jersey, and Massachusetts. And he was already the ambassador to the crown for Pennsylvania. So that's a good big forward, dude. Georgia, New Jersey, and Massachusetts. I'm sure Rhode Island asked him, and he was like, "Fuck off, dude." Connecticut was like, please, Ben, represent us. And he was like, "Dude, fuck, I don't give a fuck about Connecticut. That's beneath me. Go get fucking James Madison or Hamilton or someone to do that shit like that." And speaking of Hamilton, I didn't have any other place to put this in, but this was just like a retarded idea I had. Any black person who was associated with Hamilton in any way should have their card revoked and given to a brave white comedian who said the N-word. Just the dumbest idea ever. I don't know. It was just a dumb thought I had, which that's all this is. This is like history. This is me disguising my dumb thoughts. I just want to deliver my dumb thoughts to the populace and just disguise it as me talking about history. That's what this whole thing is. If you haven't realized that yet, you're missing out. If you aren't closely analyzing this amazing podcast, you're missing out. But yeah, I had nowhere else to fit that in, and I really shouldn't have said that. Not even because it's like the worst thing ever. Obviously, like you can say that shit now, but it just didn't fit in at all. And so he was like massively popular and stuff. And so from the mid 1750s to 1770s, Franklin spent much of his time in England, specifically London. And while in England, Franklin traveled to Scotland, Ireland, France, Germany, and Prussia. And Germany is like, I don't know, at the time it was weird. I think Germany was just like a bunch of kingdoms who like came together and they were like, all right, we got all like these super powerful countries around them. We can't be a bunch of like super small kingdoms. And so now we're Germany. I think it was that type of thing. And so he traveled to all these countries. And while in Ireland, Franklin was invited to sit with the Irish Parliament, becoming the first American to do so. And if you don't know, Parliament is basically Congress. And I was just like crying, laughing, thinking about the Irish Congress. It's just like a bunch of drunk dudes like yelling at it. Like, shut up about the House McKinney. You don't know about the House McKinney. I'll come over there and I'll beat you with a shillelagh. And then, like, afterwards, they're just, like, drunk crying, apologizing. Like, we all know what I'm talking about with the drunk crying. Just like, I'm so sorry. I don't know why I said that. My mother just died. I don't know what I'm doing with my life. I'm in Parliament. I don't know. And I was just thinking that's what Irish Congress is. It's just a bunch of drunk dudes yelling at each other. It's just a bar argument. It's just a bunch of elected dudes having a bar argument all the time. But while in Ireland, he went to Dublin and he went to a bunch of other places in Ireland. But he saw like the poverty that was imposed by British political and economic control, and this strengthened his resolve towards his sympathies for American revolutionaries and American independence movements. So he saw all of these poor people getting fucked over in Ireland, and he's like, dude, this is exactly what's happening over in America. Fuck this. We gotta go independent. You know, it's like when rappers go independent. He was like, I'm tired of the label telling us what to do. We gotta figure this out. And he went to Ireland. He also spent 2 months in Germany in 1766 and declared a debt of gratitude to the German scientist Otto von Guericke. I don't know. I can't even pronounce modern German names. 1700s German names, it's over. And I was thinking about this too, dude. You know how like some liberals are like, they'll be like, all white people are inherently racist and evil and white supremacists. And it's like, dude, what are you hiding? Like, why are you saying that all white people are, what the fuck are you talking about, dude? This was Ben Franklin's equivalent of that. Because if you don't know, or you didn't listen to the last episode, which fuck you. No one's listening to this anyway. But in the last episode, we talked about how Ben Franklin, he wrote this pamphlet. It was like a pamphlet. And in the pamphlet, he said that like Germans were like basically inferior to the English. He said that, and I was thinking about, like, this is like the white lib equivalent of the time of being like, white people are so, English people are so racist, and it's like, no, it's just you. It's just, you're racist, and now you kind of feel bad about that because you're realizing maybe not the greatest opinion to have. Now you're putting it on all of us, dude. I love black people. I love black people. All right. He might have done German face. Maybe that's why he's apologizing. Like Jimmy Fallon. If you don't know, Jimmy Fallon did blackface and then became like the biggest like lib shill fucking corporate sellout of all time. Being like, actually, white people, you can't do that. White people, you're racist, and you need to. Ben Frank might have done German face and was like, fuck, dude. I'm going hard left. We're turning hard left. You know what I mean? Like a left turn, skidding tires. That's what Ben Frank did. And so he went to Germany and he did all that. And I think he also went to Prussia at the time. And Prussia became like a close ally of America during the Revolutionary War. They sent over these people called the Hussars, something like that. And they were like these mercenaries that were like badass as hell. And they fought on the side of America during the American Revolution. And it's due in part to Ben Frank going over there and like setting up these diplomatic connections. And another diplomatic connection he set up was in 1776. Ben Frank, he went with Sir John Pringle. He went with the Pringle. He went with a dude with a big ass mustache and a monocle, and he went to Paris and he met Louis XV, and he was introduced to Louis XV for his scientific discoveries regarding electricity. And the other dude, Otto von Guericke, the German scientist that he like made his like debt of gratitude, he made his lib apology for. That guy was also an electrical scientist. Dude, imagine meeting the president. Imagine meeting Trump because you figured out a new emoji for the iPhone or something. I was just thinking, like, that's the modern day equivalent. You get to meet the president because he made the pregnant man emoji. You get to meet Joe Biden and talk about the pregnant man emoji with him. Mr. President, I was the one who made the non-binary flag and emoji on the iPhone. Wow, thank you for your service. So that's what Ben Franklin was doing with Louis XV, who was the king of France, I guess, at the time. And so while serving as an ambassador for the colonies in 1772, that's the year this happened, he obtained letters from the governor fuck from the governor and lieutenant governor of the Massachusetts Bay Colony. And the letters contained encouragement for the royal crown to crack down on the colonies. Like I said, dude, Franklin was the mean girl. If you didn't listen to the last episode, Ben Franklin owned like half of the newspapers, or half of the English-speaking newspapers in North America, and he would use them to like just talk shit about people. He'd just like write articles about how much people suck. She's a fucking bitch. I fucking hate that. Ben Franklin was just a mean girl. He was living for the drama. Maybe if he was alive today, he wouldn't be a Redditor. He'd be like a producer on a reality show. Like that fucking... Everyone's seen that clip by now, but that video of that guy seeing his girlfriend or wife or whatever get fucked by that other guy and just running down the beach. And he's screaming her name, whatever. Maria, why? ¿Por qué, Maria? Just running down the beach screaming. Ben Franklin would have been the guy that facilitated that nowadays. But these letters this drama he stirred up led to heightened political tensions between England and the North American colonies. Just absolute, he got the screenshots. Ben Franklin secured the Snapchat screenshots. He half swiped on the Snapchat, screenshotted it, got that shit out there, dude. But this caused a lot of beef. And I was also thinking about this too. Like I said, it took like 3 months is probably a conservative estimate for how long it took things to reach the colonies from England. And just being the governor and lieutenant governor, just like, maybe they weren't in England, but they were in Massachusetts or whatever, and just knowing that for like 3 months, like it's coming for you. It's like when you get in trouble as a kid and you're like sitting at home and you're like, fuck, dude, mom and dad are going to be home. God damn it, I'm so fucked. That's what these guys were like. They were like, holy fuck, we can't get out of here. These 3-toothed ingrates from rural Massachusetts are going to come beat the shit out of us. They're going to come kill us with triangle bayonets. They're gonna stab us to death with rusty pieces of metal. And I was just thinking about that, just sick to your stomach for 3 months. Just, ooh, holy fuck, dad's coming home. So that's what these guys were in. And his support for the colonies, and like I think this event in particular, got him, it said, systematically ridiculed and humiliated by the English political space in 1774. They heard about this and they just started, fat ass motherfucker, Hulk Hogan ass haircut, motherfucker, bitch, I'll fuck you up. Just talking all kinds of shit. And Franklin heard that, like I said, absolute mean girl. Sorry, I had to wet the palate again. I'm like a comedian on stage picking up the fucking bottle after I drop a fire joke, sipping on it. Yeah, I did that. Except the joke is it's not even a joke. It's barely an observation. But we bought. And so we got systematically, I don't know what that means. I guess other people started writing letters. They were like, oh, Ben Frank, you want to write letters about me? You want to talk shit? They started writing some letters too, started publishing them. And in 1775, Franklin returned to America and abandoned his accommodationist stance. And I guess accommodationist means he was like a two-state solution type of thing, where he's like, all right, we can figure this out. We can be diplomatic about it. We don't need to like go to war or whatever. He abandoned that completely. He's like, oh, you want to talk shit about me? I'll fucking destroy your whole country. He went white boy crazy. He went white boy spaz on it. Like that video of the guy when like his video game account gets deleted. It's like a clearly fake video, but it's still hilarious. It's hilarious. Like that video of that guy. He's like, I'm sure you guys have seen the video. It's from like 2007. But he's like, you've deleted my League of Legends account. And he's in his room like screaming and he shoves the controller up his butt. That's what Ben Franklin did. He spurred the fuck out. He went full white boy crazy. He basically started Green Day. That's how white boy crazy he went. By the time he returned in 1775, the revolution had already begun. I think it hadn't officially begun. Obviously, the Declaration of Independence happened in 1776, but the battles of Lexington and Concord, and I'm sure the Boston Massacre and all that shit, maybe not. I don't know when the Boston Massacre happened, but like it was already getting active. They were already, Ben Frank went white boy crazy, and the whole culture just formed this glob around him, and they went white boy crazy too. So once he got back, he was chosen as the Pennsylvania delegate to the Second Continental Congress. And like I said, the Second Continental Congress appointed him as the Postmaster General for all the colonies and shit. And so he was appointed as the delegate to the Congress, and he was also appointed to the Committee of Five, which was the group of people who drafted the Constitution. Or not the Constitution, the Declaration of Independence. Look, dude, I'm one of those dudes. It's like, what's the difference? I thought it was the same thing. I thought it was all the same thing. I'm one of those guys. They're like, who wrote it? I'm like, Thomas Jefferson, obviously. I did get a TikTok the other day, and it was, which do you know more about, the Hawk Tuah girl or American history? And the question was, who wrote the Constitution? And I was like, dude, Thomas Jefferson, obviously. Everyone knows that the Constitution wasn't written in 1776. It was written in like the 1780s or 90s or something like that. And the answer to the question, who do you know more about, the Hawk Tuah girl or American history? Obviously, I know more about the kind of hot slut that did a crypto scam. That's infinitely more interesting than American history. I'm sorry. I don't know what you want me to say. A drunk slut did something funny. That supersedes anything Ben Frank. I'm sorry. As much of a mean girl, as much of an evil bitch he never said Hawk Tuah. I don't know what you want me to say. So he was appointed to this Committee of Five to draft the Declaration of Independence. And he was unable to attend many of the meetings because he had gout. And like I said, Ben Franklin, he was the first to do a lot of shit. He might have been the first fat dude ever. He was a Redditor, dude. Like I said, he was a balding neckbeard Redditor. So he obviously had the gout. He was limping everywhere. And I don't know what gout does besides make you limp. I don't know. Not like make you limp, but like make you walk with a limp. Maybe that's a better way of putting it. Ben Franklin, he definitely wasn't limp. If you get my... I've been insinuating this whole time. He was fucking a lot, dude. Like I said, he despised his wife. He hated his wife. He was just fucking... He was fucking dudes, chicks, boys probably. He was getting active over in England. And France especially, dude. He went to that freaky-ass country. So he was, like, unable to go to a lot of the meetings and shit. But he, like, still... They said he made, like, small but impactful contributions. I think it's one of those things where it's like, all right, he wasn't there, but, like, this dude's the GOAT. All right, you got to give him his flowers. He maybe didn't do a whole lot, but he's the GOAT. So we'll just say we did all this shit. He did all this shit. And at the signing, he dropped a hard-ass quote. Dude, Ben Franklin had a couple hard-ass quotes. I got another one at the end of this page that is just bananas. You're going to hear this one. You're going to start jumping up and down going, oh, yeah. Everyone's going to be hitting that. I know. If you're an American and you hear this second quote that I'm going to get to and you don't go crazy, get him out of here. I'll contact Trump and that other dude, and I'll get you the fuck out of here. I'll be watching too. Just know. I got the Patriot Act on your ass to make sure you're a loyal American. But at the signing of the Constitution, John Hancock, obviously the dude who signed his signature, big as hell, he had another fire thing. He was like, we're all going to hang together for doing this. Like, you guys know that, right? And this was Ben Franklin's response to that. Yes, we must indeed all hang together, or most assuredly we will hang separately. Banger-ass quote. Ben Franklin was just an old man limp. He was a pimp, dude. He had a limp. He was walking around just dropping absolute knowledge on everyone. God damn, when he got old, he got sick as hell. Like, in his first days, he was, like, doing too much. He was trying too hard. Now he's an old-ass pimp. He probably had a sick-ass cane, walking around with bifocals and shit, being like, yeah, I'm bald and fat, but I'm still getting more pussy than you. That's what Ben Franklin was on. He was the fucking man. He might be better than Hawk Tuah. I don't know. It's a close battle, though, dude. I mean, Hawk Tuah, like, Ben Franklin represented what colonial America was all about, but Hawk Tuah girl, she represents what modern America is all about. Just getting viral on TikTok and then scamming a bunch of people and living your life in Palm Beach, Florida. You know? Just fucking over the working class. Because you're a hot slut. I mean, it doesn't get more American than that. It doesn't get more American than Ben Franklin either. So I think it's a close battle between the two. I think Ben Franklin would have loved her, though. He would have definitely colonial publishing of Hawk Tuah. We were talking to a promiscuous woman, a loose woman on the streets, and she was coming out of a bar, and she said, "Talk to us, spit on that thing." It was quite humorous, and I did get my dick sucked by that slut. I did get my cheesy, unwashed dick sucked by that slut. Ben Franklin definitely would have published her, though. And so he dropped that hard-ass quote, and then on October 26, 1776, he was sent to Paris as an ambassador for the United States. So he was like a political ambassador, and he must have been hyped when he got sent to Paris. He was already a freak-ass bull. He was already a freak bull from Philly, dude. But once he got sent to Paris, he was, destroying shit. Like, I didn't include this. I should have included it because I'm now realizing that I'm kind of running out of notes, but we only got 10 minutes left. I'm just trying to reach the 45-minute mark, so I'm delaying it. I'm talking about Hawk 2. I'm talking about whatever I can. But while he was in London, working as the deputy postmaster and the ambassador for all the colonies and shit, he was part of a gentleman's club. We know what that means, dude. We know chicks were taking off their big ass like corsets and hoop dresses, and he was throwing coins at them. He was throwing sterling silver straight at their heads. That's what Ben Frank was doing, and he was doing that in London. So you can imagine what he was doing in France. And so he was sent as the ambassador to France, and he lived in Paris and all that shit. And while in France, Franklin secured a crucial military alliance in 1778, and he was at the Treaty of Paris in 1783, which officially ended the Revolutionary War. And then I think 1785 is when like all the fighting like actually stopped for real. Like I said, it took like 6 months for them to get any information at all. So they were like going back and forth. They sent like 3 letters, and that caused another 2 years of fighting. And so he was part of that when he was in Paris. What else he did in Paris? So Franklin, like I said last time, listen to the last episode to get the insights into Franklin's Freemasonry. It's hilarious. It's the funniest. He was on trial and he like testified in this case. It's hilarious. I just don't know what else to say about this. And this is also hilarious. And this is why I'm like, maybe this was like written by a Freemason for them to trick us into thinking they're just like a bunch of retarded dudes. But he was just involved in like pure retardation during his time in the Freemasons. But while he was a Freemason in France, in 1784, he disproved the idea of animal magnetism, which was, I'm going to try to explain this. It's the idea that like every force in nature is like attracted to each other somehow. I always thought it was about sex. I always thought it was like some freaky shit. Like, you know what I mean? You seen a girl, let's do it how they do on the Discovery. I thought it was like that type of thing. No, it's just like the idea that like everything in nature is like attracted to each other. And he disproved this idea with like a experiment that involved one of the first uses of the placebo effect. And so basically what they did is they blindfolded these guys and they were like, do you feel attracted to anything around you? And they were like, no. That was the whole experiment. He disproved it with like the easiest like 4th grade logic ever. Very funny by Ben Franklin. Franklin also became the American delegate to Sweden in 1783 and negotiated a treaty with them despite never having visited their country. Once again, the man was just talking shit, sending letters, doing whatever he wanted to do. This was like a side gig for him at this point. He was figuring out electricity, sending kites into the air, negotiating with Sweden. But I don't know. Sweden, I can imagine that's a difficult negotiation. It's like, do you want to be allies with America? No. All right, you're on the other side of the world. You're not going to do anything to us. You don't have any colonies. Sweden had like one colony in America in like the 1600s for like 2 years, and then the British were like, "This is ours," and they're like, "Yes, of course." But Ben Franklin negotiated a treaty with them, which I think I could have done that. Let's be honest here. It's like, oh, you don't want to be friends with us? Okay. Like, it's not even like a we'll fuck you up situation. It's like, whatever, dude. I guess don't. It makes no difference to me. But he did negotiate a treaty with them, which is sick, despite never having visited them. Also in 1783, he witnessed the first flight of the hydrogen balloon and became a financial supporter for the first manned flight. And I don't know, I wouldn't be that hyped about like it's like you don't even got a person in there. Dude, it's the 1700s. We don't value human life at all. Just strap like a baby to that thing and see if it can float. But I guess there was no one in there. He was just like, just seeing something man-made fly, I guess got him hyped up, which I mean, fair enough. But he already discovered all this other shit. I don't know. I wouldn't be that hyped about it. I'm not impressed. That's how I am with scientific discoveries now. Like I'm a big animal guy. I love animals. I still got that 4-year-old mentality where I'm like flipping through picture books, being like, God damn, that's a sick ass animal. An ant with horns. I don't think it gets cooler than this. And every time they come out with a new animal, like a new animal comes out, they did have a fire one. They did have a echidnas. They discovered a new species of echidna in Papua New Guinea. I was hyped about that. But most of the other ones I'm not hyped about. It's like a new shrimp or something. They discovered like a shrimp that lives in like deep sea vents. I'm like, dude, come on, get us a new whale. They did find a new whale though. I was hyped about that one. Or they didn't find it. They found like the first live specimen, but still pretty sick. It's like, but like I don't care about like a new species of water beetle, dude. Find us like a dragon or like some kind of sick ass lizard. I'm having none of this. Start going in caves and shit. Go to the bottom of the sea floor and find fucking the Leviathan or whatever. I don't care about shrimp, dude. I munch shrimp. Can I munch the new shrimp you found? No? Okay. I don't care. And that's how I feel about the hydrogen balloon. Not impressed, but Ben Franklin apparently was hyped this up. And during the first, so he supported the first manned flight, and so obviously he was there. And I know for a fact the point where the first hydrogen balloon overall was where they built the Eiffel Tower, like the point where it took off from. They built the Eiffel Tower there. I don't know about the first manned flight. I have to imagine it was in the same spot. Because I think it's like the reason the Wright brothers flew from Kitty Hawk, North Carolina, is because it was like the perfect conditions. So I imagine that's why they sent the balloon there, the hydrogen balloon. I imagine that's why they sent it there. So I have to imagine that they sent the second one from there as well. But that's not important. And so during the first flight, one of the pilots saw Franklin playing chess with a woman. It was like the Duchess of like whatever the fuck. The Duchess of Pringle. the Duchess of Ruffles. The Duchess of lightly salted Lays. I don't know. He was playing chess with this like fancy chick. And so while he was playing chess with her, Franklin took the woman's king and she said, We do not take king so. Everyone get hyped. Everyone, if you're sitting down, if you're laying down, stand up. If you're wearing socks, take them off. If you're wearing a hat, take it off because I'm about to blow that shit out of the water. So he took this woman's king and she said, We do not take king so. And he responded, We do in America. Don't. God damn. Holy shit. That's the toughest quote I ever heard. In the middle of just, he's got the first balloon flying over him. He's not even paying attention to that. He's playing chess with this rich-ass chick. He's probably about to fuck the shit out of her later. And he's like, at this point, he's what, 77 years old? Yeah, it's 1783, so he's 77 years old. But he's still probably going to fuck the shit out of this chick, not even paying attention to these dudes flying above him for the first time ever. He's like, man, fuck, that's chump change to a guy like me. And he's playing chess against this chick. She's like, oh, we don't do that. Don't do it like that. And Ben Franklin, motherfucker, I topple kings. God damn, he's too tough. I don't know what you want me to say. But anyway, sick as hell. In 1785, after the end of the war, Franklin returned to America, freed his 2 slaves, and founded the Pennsylvania Abolitionist Society. And I got to take points away from Ben Frank for that one. Like, freeing the slaves, obviously that's good, but then immediately freeing the slaves and being like, no one else is allowed to have it. It's like, I talked a little bit about the Malcolm X movie, I think, in the last, some recent episode, but no one listened to it. No one's listening to this one. So who cares? I can talk about whatever I want. I can say whatever I want. I can say, no. But I was thinking that's kind of bullshit. It was like, no one else is allowed to have slaves anymore because I don't have them. He took his ball and he went home, basically. I was like, that's kind of bullshit. And it's like the Malcolm X movie, too. Or Malcolm X's life. I say the Malcolm X movie, he was a real person. But before Malcolm X became like a, what would that be called? A civil rights leader? I was going to say like a desegregationist leader. I knew there was an easier word to say. Before he became a civil rights leader, he was fucking white bitches. And like, he was a pimp. He was a pimp and he was fucking white bitches and snorting coke and all that shit. And then he immediately, not even like, maybe like a year. He took a year off. He went to jail for a year and became a Muslim and was like, you can't fuck white bitches no more. Probably why he was killed by a black dude, all right? It wasn't the CIA that did it, even though it obviously was, but whatever. It doesn't fit into the joke. A black dude killed him because he was like, oh, we're not allowed to fuck white women and do coke anymore. I'll fucking kill you. And I was thinking it's the exact same thing. He took his ball and he went home. That was some bullshit by Malcolm X, and it was some bullshit by Ben Frank. Look, I'm not I'm not saying slavery is good, but you can't just be like, I don't have slaves anymore, so no one else is allowed to have them. No. And why didn't you free them earlier, huh? But anyway, um, so now in America, he returned in 1785. He served as the president. I guess they were just calling everyone president back then. They were like, dude, this is way better than king. President's a way more sick term. But it just means governor of Pennsylvania from 1785 until 1787. And he served 3 terms because each term was only a year. So 1785 to 1786, 1786 to 1787, and then 1787 to 1788. I don't know. It said he served 3 terms. Whatever. I don't know. Franklin died on April 17th, 1790. The end of an era. The end of the sickest dude of all time, maybe. And his final words were, "A dying man can do nothing easy." Not the greatest final words. Once again, not impressed. Not impressed by those final words. Maybe he meant a dying man can do nothing easily, but look, he did all this sick shit. We gotta forgive him for not getting his last words right. You know, he's dying, and what a plutaric attack is, I don't know if I said that. He died from a plutaric attack, though. It's like the tissue in your lung and like the tissue surrounding it gets all inflamed and shit, so you can't breathe. So those probably weren't his last words. His last words were probably like, I just spit everywhere. But those were actually his last words. That was probably his real last words. I think that was more like Ben Frank's last words. But still, a dying man can do nothing easy. Still some good last words. And on his funeral, like I said, this dude was the Michael Jackson of his time. Over 20,000 people in America attended Franklin's funeral, and the Constitutional Assembly in Revolutionary France declared a 3-day mourning period. This dude basically stopped a war for 3 days. I'm sure he didn't like stop it completely, but still, he stopped like major advances in the war for 3 days just because he died, dude. That's like, there's a sick ass video on TikTok where this dude named like DD Drogba, and you're gonna get one guess as to what continent DD Drogba came from.
DD Drogba. This is my son DD. He's a great soccer player. He comes from my country.
I don't know. I did like a Russian accent, but I made it raspy to sound more African. But he's from Africa. He's from Côte d'Ivoire, which is French for the Ivory Coast. And he basically stopped a war with like a soccer game. He was like a sick ass soccer player, and he was playing against some other country in Africa, and he won the game basically by himself. I assume by himself, and got them like qualified to play in the World Cup tournament. And he stopped this war in Africa. He like got down on his knees and he was like, "Put down your guns," and he stopped the war. That's what Ben Franklin was doing, but he didn't even win a soccer game. He was like an old fat guy that died, and he stopped the fucking war, and 20,000 people attended his funeral. And yeah, aura. He's just the sickest stopped a war for 3 days just because he died, just because he went. He stopped the war. But that's all I've got for this episode. Ben Frank might have been the sickest dude of all time, and I think this is episode 26. So this is the 6-month anniversary. I'd say I've gotten better for sure. I'm definitely not good, but I've gotten better at this. And yeah, if you've listened at all, I guess thank you. But I don't need your thanks, all right? Drew Montana told me my idea for a prank phone call was funny. And he's a comedian from Philadelphia. He's on food stamps, so you can all suck my dick, all right? I don't need any of you. My dumbass brother's kids that can't fucking remember my name, fuck you too. I was thinking, like, should I bring this? And I was like, no one's listening anyway. I could say fuck you to the kids. I could bring up. I could probably say their full legal name and address. No one would know. But not the point. Not the point. All right. Obviously, I'm out of steam on this one. I think this was a decent episode. Definitely not one of my best. But like I said, I've only been doing this for 6 months. Maybe at a year. If I'm still at this point at a year, and I'm stumbling over my words and I can barely get a sentence out, maybe then I'll stop. But for now, we're going to keep trucking on. Yeah, 6 months. I don't know. That is it. Fucking nothing special. Yeah, hope you have a good day, good week, good month, good semester. We got like, how many weeks left until spring break? 2-3 weeks? I think 3 weeks. 3 weeks left till spring break. But yeah, that's all I've got for this episode. Ben Frank was probably the sickest dude of all time. And I, hope you have a good time. See you guys on Wednesday, hopefully. And yeah, all right. Peace out. Duval.